Over the last about a year and a year, I've been fully focused in working with dental offices. From probably summertime of last year, I have lived in a startup fee for service office and watched it grow from nothing to nearly six figures a month, out of network, no insurance. And I've kind of realized being on the inside of these dental offices what some of the issues are. And through referrals, I was able to work with other dental offices, kind of run the same role that I've been doing, which is focused on growth and operations. Um, I've kind of realized that there are a lot of problems that dental offices have. I think first and foremost, dentists are usually pretty shitty business owners. And so um, I think what's different than some businesses compared to like dentistry, for example. If you're a solo practitioner, if you're a practice owner slash sole dentist, um, how much money you take home at the end of the year really is contingent on how much work you do and how many patients you can see. And this dynamic kind of evolves as you scale up, open up more operatories and hire associates. But you're pretty much constrained by the amount of clinical work that you can do, kind of putting out fires as the business owner. And so it makes sense why some of these issues are just so prevalent with all the dental offices that I've worked with. So I want to go over marketing and growth and operations specifically when it comes down to dental offices. And the way that I think about it is pretty simple. Marketing is really important, but it is not the end all be all. Before you start marketing, your operations needs to be dialed in and locked in. And what I mean by that is I'll go over some of the general pitfalls that I've seen in these offices. Includes things like low pickup rate, um, bad conversion rate over the phone, unable to schedule appointments, mixed marketing messages. One front desk says, hey, a consult is free. The other front desk says, hey, on our PMS, the price of a consult is $295. So it's $295 for you to come in. So those little things sort of add up. And if that is not in line to begin with, then marketing is secondary and doesn't really matter. And so if you're looking to market your dental practice and or continue to market or market better, I would recommend that the first step you do is to take a look within your business to see how your operations are. The first thing that I believe is the most important is probably something that sounds really dumb and really silly and no one really thinks about, but it is to pick up the phones. From all the research and all the people that I've spoken to in the past in the space who are fantastic at what they do, I really like this guy named Gary Bird, but basically 40% to 35% of all the calls in the office gets missed during business hours. So say you're spending $1,000 and for simplicity's sake, and $35, 350 or 40, $400 is going to be going to waste every single time you run through a ad cycle in a month. That just doesn't really make any sense. So you're really only spending $650, and that is the pool of all the calls you're getting that you're picking up. And then if your conversion rate is bad, then you're scheduling a very small percentage of the people that are looking to book an appointment with you, and so on and so forth. So that's a big problem. One of the things that I've seen that really boosts overall performance is even with average performance and conversion rates over the phone, you are able to get the low-hanging fruit and speak to the patients that really need to get spoken to, that are looking to book an appointment, saw your profile, want to come in, is by answering them when they pick up. And they have no loyalty to you as a dentist, because they don't know who you are. But if you're the first one to pick up, schedule them, ask them what they're doing, then they become an opportunity in your pipeline, which, helps you build your patient base. Anyways, The second part is, I briefly just talked about it, is conversion rate. Conversion rate, dentists don't really like to talk about sales, but sales is, okay, outside of marketing, the most important people in the dental office outside of the dentist, which is a in-office operation problem, is going to be the first line of sort of defense, or the first line of attackers is going to be your front desk. And the front desk is usually the most inexperienced, young, fresh hires who are getting paid minimum wage. And basically, all of the flows and all the leverage you have from marketing must flow through them before they become appointments or patients that come in through the door for a first time visit. And that's a lot of stress, and it doesn't really make any sense. Salespeople, on the other hand, makes the most amount of money when it comes down to software sales, door-to-door sales, any sort of product sales, info product sales, whatever it might be. They make the most amount of money because they make the deal happen. And so it's sort of like appointment setting, stage one. They are your salespeople. And what I see is that the research that I've done is that the average conversion rate over the phone for average offices is around 50%. And that's quite low. So given you have 10 opportunities of like qualified patients, not Medicaid, whatever it is that you're looking for, if you're in a Medicaid office, it doesn't apply to you. But you're only going to convert 5 of them. And for simplicity's sake, you're going to convert, let's say they have a 100% show rate after you set an appointment. So the main challenge here is to set the appointment. And so you set the appointment, 5 of them come in, and the average value per patient per year is around $1,000 for fee-for-service offices. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe lower, but it's easy math. The top 10% high performing dental offices actually convert at about 80 to 90% on the phones for qualified opportunities. And so what this means is for every 5 patients that you bring into the office, which equals to around $5,000 of top line production, $8,000 to $9,000 is being brought in by the other people with the same traffic and the same ad spend that you guys are with the same ad spend across 2 similar practices. And so you can really see on a large scale how this can really stack up and make these incremental changes. Given the same amount of ad spend, if you're not spending ads, this doesn't apply to you. But if you are spending money on ads, by increasing your conversion rate, by increasing your customer value, by increasing the amount of calls that you pick up, it really stacks that production into the line. And the way that I think about it is, marketing creates randomness in your practice, and by doing the correct marketing, you're going to have random people who come into your office who are hopefully your ideal patients, and then randomly give you some cases that you randomly want to do. And so from these, if let's say you're marketing for hygiene patients, they come in and some of them need a crown, then you get to add $2,200 to your production for the year from this one patient, which brings up your patient average. And so I recommend, before you make any of these additional changes with agencies, make these additional changes with your marketing, changing this, changing that. Step 1 is to look inside and see what's going on. And the way that I would sort of tackle this conversion rate problem is, most people who are calling in the phones and the people who are working the front desk, unless you have someone spectacular, if so, keep them. They're scared to pick up the phones. They're also extremely busy doing all of these other tasks that the doctor, the dentist, or the office manager is having them do. And when they pick up the phone, they want to get off the phone. And going back to what I said before, that going on the phone and being able to schedule that appointment is the first line of attack, or the first point of growth for your business. Because if they don't schedule, if they don't have a good attitude on the phone, they're not good at scheduling, then all the money that you're spending on advertising ends up going to waste and leaking out of your business, and you're just burning and lighting money on fire. And so the way that I would go about this, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's always a little bit uncomfortable. It feels like you're being watched, but I would implement call training. I would implement call recording if you don't have a system. Some systems that I have used in the past are like CallRail, Mango AI, which does the transcriptions and gives you sentiment check. These are all really good. even with like I think it was like Ascend or like Dentrix. I don't really remember, but um, these phone systems allow you to review the calls that are coming in, disqualify some of the bad calls, because at the end of the day, if you run the front desk before, you're going to get people who are not qualified. If you're a fee for service and you get a Medicaid call, that doesn't really count. You could try to convert them for an emergency, which is a completely different story, but I would not count that as a qualified opportunity or a qualified lead. And so if you're able to listen to these, give them the scripts to be able to look things over in the first hand, enforce the scripts and work with them to role play on the scripts to answer the insurance question, to be able to answer, do you do this procedure? Do you take my insurance? All of these questions, if you train them to answer it, there's only really 5 or 6 different scenarios that can possibly exist for a phone call. So it's pretty regular. If you can train all of these things, you're going to run into the same kinds of problems every single time. And your front desk will do a lot better. But it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes giving feedback, and it takes reviews. And it's really changing from an order taker, which is like, what do you want? What can I do for you? Like customer service, into a curious consultative, a curious consultant that only mission is to book appointments into the office while giving the full sort of professionalism and transparency and beginning of customer patient experience from the phone call. And so that is also really important. The other thing that is really like tertiary to all of this, like if you are great at picking up the phones, and if you're great at picking up the phones and you are great at converting over the phones and you're running ads, like you can get really lucky and not really have to have a center of truth for your problems, because you'll just you're not at the level yet where things are just growing. If you are in a place where you're cycling through 6 or 7 or 8, advertising agencies, and you always fire them and it's always their fault and something is not, you need a center of truth, and you need to look within yourselves to make the change and see like where you really want to build, like where do you want to take your dental practice. Like the promise for a dentist is, I go through 4 years of school, I go through some training, fellowship, specialization for an additional 2 to 3 years, I take on $500,000 worth of debt, and then I work an associate job that's kind of dead end, and now I'm going into practice ownership, and I'm supposed to have a good lifestyle, right? Like I'm supposed to be a dentist and I'm supposed to work 3.5 days a week. Things are supposed to be working in my favor, but like just things are not really working, and this is what was promised to me and I feel really stuck. If you want that and you've been firing a whole bunch of people, that's why I kind of prefaced all of this by saying, do not look at marketing first. Look internally with what the issue is going to be with your operations around those 3 things before you jump into marketing, which is a whole nother page. And so if you're doing number 1, picking up the phone, number 2, converting people on the phones, and then 3, having like a center of truth for tracking, which is what I totally forgot to talk about. But having a center of truth for tracking means how many calls are coming in through whatever advertising channel you're using, Facebook, Google, print, whatever it is, right? You're tracking that, then you're tracking the calls, the length of the calls, you're tracking who's taking the calls, you're tracking the quality of the calls, and then you're also tracking what's resulting in appointments, and then you're able to track exactly how much you're spending per patient. Then you can use that to scale your budget as you're growing. The biggest challenge between marketing and operations is that the dentist is in charge of operations, which generally is like, you guys are busy being clinicians, you guys are busy being like every single role that is needed at the dental office, and so you don't really have the time. But marketing is not in charge of answering the phones unless you have one of those specialized agency services. But at the end of the day, you don't have control when it comes down to services like that. Someone else is booking, your front desk is still lacking. What happens with the internal patients that are coming in? If you're thinking about going fee for service and then you realize that like you no longer have the inflow of patients that are coming in from insurance, and the whole thing. So it's important to build your operations correctly, do it right the first time, teach it right the first time, foster a connection the first time, and then have a center of truth to be able to track everything. And you as the owner, the doctor, the CEO, whatever, the president, the partner, whatever it is that you decide to call yourself, it's going to be important that you can look, hopefully at your financials, look at where your marketing growth is, your new patient count, what kind of growth that you've seen from one event type, so consults, emergencies, new patients, how many of those are attributed to referrals, how many are attributed to marketing, how effective is my marketing, and if I want to get to a new patient goal, how much money can I spend, right? And so like being able to track these things and having a center, like a place of truth for all of the operations that are going on, that is reliant on your part of the operation, is very important. So that's pretty much that. On marketing for dentistry honestly is not the most tough thing in the world. I could give you an example of like marketing for me. I Doctor originally thought that Google ads don't work. We started extremely small, it's a few $100s a month in budget, started growing it very slowly, and then scaled up to about $2,800 a month. Super small campaign, but it's a fee-for-service office, out of network, accepts insurance, and basically it scaled up from getting like 5 or 6 calls a month all the way up to 100 calls per month, and not including any online self-scheduling. And what I've learned really is there's a lot of bad media buyers out there that will just kind of like take your money, spend it somewhere, and then not really check in with you. The TLDR of what I have figured out is that you want to market where your patients are. You want to make sure that you're geo-targeting. I like to use the example of and like kind of do competitor analysis, see how like competitive your area is. So if you're surrounded by DSOs, you realize that your budget is not going to not go as far. Maybe you got to find a small pocket where people are coming in from your office. In order for you to do that, you need to spend the money. Just marketing, it's relatively straightforward, and I think it is the secondary problem to solve. If you want me to go over more information as it pertains to marketing, some of the failings that I've had in the past, some of the issues that I'm still currently dealing with, I'm happy to make a video about that in the future. But what I really wanted to focus on, just to conclude everything out, is that marketing is secondary to operations. And if you are a dental office owner, if you're any sort of medical practice owner, and you've switched infinite agencies, the ones where you're looking to deliver you leads, I'm not saying that they're great. I'm not saying that they're bad, but it is a pattern when you're switching so many agencies. And the first step, whether you're looking to grow or you're trying to finally find a partner that sticks, look inside of your operation, see where things can be improved on. In theory, it's very simple. In practice, it's very difficult to do because you need to start taking time out of your day to enforce that these systems are done. And yeah, that's pretty much it.